We often mistake courage for grand, heroic acts, standing on a battlefield, charging into danger, or making bold decisions under pressure. But Brené Brown teaches us that the most profound acts of bravery don't always look dramatic. Many times they happen in quiet moments, behind closed doors, in the raw conversations we have with ourselves and with others. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the most accurate measure of courage. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you're stepping into uncertainty. You're exposing your heart without a guarantee of how others will respond. You're telling the truth when lying would be easier. You're showing up fully without knowing whether you'll be accepted, rejected, misunderstood, or embraced. This is courage in its purest form, the courage to be emotionally honest, to risk heartbreak, to be seen for who you really are without the armor. It takes courage to admit that you don't have all the answers. It takes courage to ask for help, to say, I'm hurting, or to reveal your dreams and desires when failure feels close. Vulnerability is present when you send that job application after being rejected 10 times, when you say, I love you. First, when you confront someone about something that matters to you. In all these moments, you're risking emotional exposure. But without that risk, there can be no reward. Being vulnerable is a radical act in a culture that glorifies self-reliance, invincibility, and control. It defies the lie that strength is about being unaffected, distant, or untouchable. Vulnerability says, I care enough to try, even if I might fail. It says, this matters enough to risk my pride. It's not about recklessness or oversharing. It's about intentional honesty. It's about choosing to be seen, choosing to show up when it would be safer to hide. Ultimately, vulnerability is the foundation upon which courage is built. Without it, we're just performing. With it, we're truly living. One of the most powerful insights from Brené Brown's research is the realization that we cannot selectively numb emotions. As humans, we often try to avoid the hard parts of life, pain, grief, fear, shame, disappointment, by numbing them. We turn to distractions, addictions, perfectionism, or emotional detachment in hopes of escaping the discomfort. But what we fail to recognize is that when we shut down those darker emotions, we also dull the light. You can't numb heartbreak without numbing joy. You can't push away fear without also pushing away courage. You can't suppress grief and still expect to feel deep love. Emotions don't come with individual switches. They come as a full spectrum. When we try to deaden one part of the emotional experience, we sacrifice the richness of all of it. People often believe they're protecting themselves by staying emotionally in control. They avoid crying, avoid tough conversations, avoid facing their trauma or their past. But this emotional self-protection creates a false sense of safety. What it really does is build walls around the heart, walls that may keep out pain, but also keep out connection, intimacy, creativity, and joy. Life becomes flatter, narrower, less alive. True joy, real, soul deep joy is vulnerable. It requires you to be open to the moment, open to the possibility of loss, and open to the risk that things may not last. Gratitude requires vulnerability too, because it's an acknowledgement that we are touched by something bigger than ourselves, something that could disappear. And love, at its very core, is the ultimate act of vulnerability. This is why numbing is such a dangerous habit. It promises relief but delivers emptiness. It creates distance from others and from ourselves. It often shows up subtly through overworking, overeating, scrolling endlessly, staying constantly busy, or pretending we're fine when we're not. But over time, it erodes our emotional well-being and our capacity to live wholeheartedly. Allowing ourselves to feel is not weakness, it's a reclaiming of our full humanity. When we stop numbing, we begin to feel everything again. The laughter that brings tears, the beauty that moves us, the courage that rises when we least expect it. We begin to reawaken parts of ourselves that we had silenced, and in doing so, we start to truly live In a world where so many people wear emotional masks, strive for curated perfection, and present only highlight reels of their lives, authenticity becomes a rare and powerful force. Brené Brown teaches that true connection, deep, soul-level connection, only happens when we allow ourselves to be real, messy, and imperfect. Authenticity is the foundation of human connection, and vulnerability is what makes it possible. When we show up as our true selves, not who we think we're supposed to be, but who we truly are, we give others permission to do the same. It's not about having everything figured out or being flawless. It's about owning your story, even the parts you're not proud of. It's about saying, this is me. I'm still growing. I don't have all the answers, but I'm here, and I'm showing up honestly. We often believe that if we can appear perfect, strong, successful, always in control, we'll be more accepted or loved. But ironically, it's that exact pursuit of perfection that creates distance. People don't connect with our masks, they connect with our truth. They connect when we say, me too. They connect when we admit we're struggling. They connect when we laugh at our own flaws, when we share our failures, and when we speak our truth, even when our voice trembles. Authenticity invites empathy. When someone is real with us, we see their humanity, and in doing so, we recognize our own. That moment of recognition, of emotional resonance, is where true connection is born. It builds trust because we no longer feel alone. We see ourselves reflected in another, and suddenly, the burden of being enough is lifted. But being authentic requires bravery. It means risking judgment. It means standing in your truth when others might not understand. It means saying what's real, not what's easy. It asks you to drop the performance and embrace the discomfort of being seen as you really are. Not edited, not filtered, not polished. That's where connection lives, not in the spotlight of admiration, but in the quiet moments of mutual understanding. The beauty of authenticity is that it deepens every relationship, whether it's with your partner, your family, your friends, your coworkers, or even yourself. The more you live authentically, the more you attract people who are drawn to your truth rather than your image. You no longer have to perform for love or approval. You simply get to be and be loved for that alone. Shame is one of the most powerful and paralyzing emotions we experience as human beings. It tells us that we are unworthy of love, connection, and belonging, not because of something we've done, but because of who we are. Brené Brown defines shame as the intensely painful belief that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of acceptance. And the most insidious thing about shame is that it thrives in silence, secrecy, and judgment. When we keep our shame hidden, it grows. It feeds off isolation. It whispers to us in the dark corners of our minds, "You're not good enough." If they knew this about you, they'd walk away. Shame convinces us that we must stay quiet, that no one else could possibly understand, and that if we were truly seen, we would be rejected. So we lock it away, we wear masks, we pretend, and in doing so, we disconnect from others and from ourselves. But here's the truth: shame cannot survive being spoken. The moment we put it into words, the moment we say out loud, "This is what I'm feeling," or "This is what happened to me," we begin to take its power away. Vulnerability is the weapon that disarms shame. When we choose to speak our shame to someone who has earned the right to hear it, someone empathetic, kind, and non-judgmental, we start to break its grip. Bringing our shame into the light is not easy. It often comes with fear, discomfort, and emotional exposure, but it also comes with relief. Because when someone hears your story and says, "I've been there too," or "You're not alone," something shifts inside you. That moment of shared humanity begins to heal the wound. It reminds you that your worthiness is not up for debate. Many people confuse shame with guilt, but they are not the same. Guilt says, "I did something bad." Shame says, "I am bad." Guilt can be a helpful emotion. It can motivate growth and accountability. But shame corrodes the soul. It makes us shrink, hide, and self-sabotage. Left unchecked, it can lead to anxiety, depression, addiction, perfectionism, and even physical illness. To fight shame, we must cultivate shame resilience. That means recognizing shame when it shows up, understanding what triggers it, and learning how to respond with self-compassion rather than self-criticism. It means creating safe spaces where people can be vulnerable without fear of ridicule or rejection. It means being the kind of person who listens with empathy instead of judgment. Speaking shame aloud is a revolutionary act. It takes tremendous courage, but every time we do it, we create a ripple of liberation, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who's been carrying their own silent burdens. Perfectionism is often misunderstood as a healthy drive for excellence, but Brené Brown's research reveals a much deeper truth. Perfectionism is not about self-improvement. It's about fear. It's a defense mechanism, a 20-ton shield we carry, hoping it will protect us from judgment, failure, and shame. It masquerades as ambition. But in reality, it is just fueled by the belief that if we just do everything perfectly, we can avoid the pain of being criticized, rejected, or not enough. At its core, perfectionism is the false idea that our worth is tied to what we produce, how we look, how others perceive us, or how flawless our performance is. It whispers that mistakes make us unlovable, that if we're not exceptional, we're invisible, that if there's a flaw in us or our work, we are a failure. And so we overthink, overwork, overcompensate. We delay taking action out of fear it won't be good enough. We avoid risks, not because we lack talent, but because we dread the possibility of not being perfect. The truth is, perfectionism is exhausting. It's a constant chase for an unattainable ideal. It robs us of peace, joy, and creativity. It demands that we prove our worth over and over again, never allowing us to feel safe in who we already are. It turns every endeavor into a test and every mistake into a personal indictment. And worse, it disconnects us from others, from our own vulnerability, and from the authentic self that is hidden beneath the need to impress. Perfectionism is not the same as striving for excellence. Striving is healthy. It comes from a place of internal motivation and self-respect. Perfectionism, on the other hand, comes from fear and shame. It's externally driven, shaped by what others might think or say. It tells us, if I look perfect, live perfect, and work perfect, I can avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and ridicule. But here's the cost. While we're trying so hard to be perfect, we often miss the chance to be real. We miss the opportunity to create, to connect, to try, to fail, to learn, to grow. We lose the chance to enjoy the messy, beautiful, imperfect process of becoming. We silence our voice in rooms where we might not be the expert. We hold back our art, our ideas, our dreams, because we fear they won't be flawless. When we choose vulnerability over perfectionism, we start to reclaim our humanity. We begin to understand that it's okay to be a work in progress, that we are worthy of love and acceptance, not because of what we achieve, but because of who we are underneath it all. Perfection is a moving target. Authenticity is what grounds us. Wholehearted living, the idea of engaging in life with a deep sense of worthiness, purpose, and connection, is not a passive state of being. It's an intentional and courageous way of moving through the world, and it always involves risk. Brené Brown's work teaches us that vulnerability is the gateway to wholehearted living because we cannot experience true love, joy, creativity, or belonging without first being willing to risk rejection, failure, and disappointment. So many of us long for deep relationships, meaningful work, inner peace, and lives filled with passion and purpose. But we often want those things without the uncertainty that comes with them. We want the reward without the risk. The truth, though, is that anything worth having, authentic love, genuine connection, creative freedom, meaningful success, requires a level of exposure. It demands that we show up not as perfect versions of ourselves, but as whole, imperfect human beings who are willing to be seen and heard, flaws and all. Risk is not just about skydiving or starting a business. It's about emotional risk, the kind that asks you to speak up when you're scared, to love again after heartbreak, to try after failing, and to hope even when you've been disappointed. It's about telling the truth when a lie would be easier. It's about trusting someone when your instincts beg you to retreat. It's about pursuing a dream when there's no safety net to catch you. Wholehearted living also means letting go of the need for certainty. It means surrendering the illusion of control and accepting that life is unpredictable, relationships are complex, and emotions are messy. It's learning to walk through the world with an open heart, even when that heart has been broken. It's believing that you are worthy of love and belonging, even if you've been told otherwise, even if you've made mistakes, even if you still have healing to do. There is incredible beauty in this kind of vulnerability. When you choose to live wholeheartedly, you start to cultivate deeper relationships because you're no longer hiding behind a facade. You start to do work that matters to you, not just what's expected. You begin to speak and act from a place of alignment rather than fear. And while you may face pain and setbacks along the way, you'll also experience a richness of life that only exists when you're fully engaged. The risk is real, but so is the reward. Wholehearted living is about showing up for your life, not the filtered, edited version, but the real, raw, unfiltered experience of being human. Vulnerability isn't a one-time event or a grand gesture made in moments of crisis or transformation. It's a daily, intentional practice of choosing to be honest, open, and emotionally exposed in the everyday moments of our lives. Brené Brown reminds us that vulnerability isn't something we master and check off a list. It's a way of being. It's how we choose to show up again and again, even when it would be easier to hide, numb, or pretend. Every day, we're presented with countless opportunities to either armor up or stay open. Vulnerability shows up when we say, I don't know. At work, instead of pretending we have all the answers. It shows up when we reach out to a friend and admit we're lonely. It shows up when we speak our truth in a relationship, even when we fear it might cause discomfort. It's in every honest apology, every courageous ask for help, every moment we choose presence over protection. The practice of vulnerability is not about oversharing or being emotionally reckless. It's about making conscious decisions to be real, especially in situations where we're tempted to retreat behind perfectionism, sarcasm, avoidance, or control. It's in the simple, profound choices we make to listen without judgment, to express feelings without editing them for approval, to stand in integrity even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular. What makes vulnerability difficult is that it doesn't always yield instant gratification. In fact, it often leads us into discomfort, uncertainty, and emotional risk. But over time, it builds emotional strength. The more we practice vulnerability, the more resilient we become, not because we've toughened up, but because we've softened into the truth of who we are. We learn to trust ourselves more deeply. We begin to care less about perfection and more about authenticity. We become better at setting boundaries because we recognize that being open doesn't mean being exposed to harm. It means being clear about what we will and won't allow. Vulnerability also strengthens our connections. When we show up fully in our relationships, not just as caretakers, achievers, or performers, but as humans with real emotions, we create space for intimacy and trust to grow. Practicing vulnerability daily means staying in the difficult conversations instead of walking away. It means allowing others to support us instead of pretending we have everything handled. It means being willing to disappoint people if it means staying true to ourselves. This daily practice isn't easy. Some days it will feel like a stretch, other days like a battle. But every time we choose vulnerability, we are choosing courage. We're choosing to live, relate, lead, and love from a place of authenticity. We're choosing to be awake to our lives instead of numbing or shrinking from them. And through this practice, we slowly but powerfully shape the kind of life that isn't just lived on the surface, but felt deeply, experienced fully, and owned completely. In a world that often tells us to armor up, to hide our feelings, to only show the polished and perfected parts of ourselves, choosing vulnerability is a radical act of courage. It's not the easy path, but it is the path to a life of depth, connection, and meaning. Vulnerability is not about being weak. It's about being brave enough to be seen, to be heard, and to be known. When we allow ourselves to live with open hearts, when we stop pretending and start showing up as we are, we don't just change our own lives, we give others permission to do the same. We create a culture where empathy replaces judgment, where connection replaces isolation, and where courage replaces fear. So as you move forward, ask yourself, are you choosing comfort or are you choosing courage? Because a wholehearted life, a life rich with purpose, joy, and authentic relationships can only be built on the foundation of vulnerability. And that choice every single day is where true strength lives,